All right, here we go. Another exciting day in the markets, everyone. We have the PCE numbers out with personal income and outlays. And I'll tell you what, taking a look at it gives a bit of a story that we need to pay attention to. We'll take a look at the impact to the S&P, the NASDAQ 100, the Russell 2000 stocks through the ETFs that track them. We'll also take a look at Bitcoin and XRP in this video. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Nvidia, and I'll give some updates on some technicals on some companies that I've been following, and I'll clue you in on all that. So first, let me give some commentary on the numbers that we see through the personal income and outlays. So we got personal spending coming in at 0.7, up above the 0.5 consensus on that. Personal income at 0.4. So personal income not moving very much, but strong spending numbers. That's good for the GDP that we see as consumers drive the GDP by about 70%. They make about 70% of it. So that's a good thing. To see that happening. Employment costs, benefits, wages, you name it, those are all fairly high compared to what we got the last month. That could be something showing that maybe there are still some inflationary pressures that exist. 0.7 was the forecast. As per Trading Economics, we got 0.8 for cost benefits. Employment cost wages at 0.9 versus 0.7 forecasted. And then employment cost index, 0.7% expected. For quarter-over-quarter numbers, I should say, for Q4, and that came in at 0.9. So they could speak to some inflationary pressures that we see, or at least sustaining some of the higher inflation that we see. So the core PCE number that we got, by the way, was 2.8%. So for that, it's not out of whack. It's not that it's completely out of the ordinary to see a number like that, but it certainly is showing a little bit more stabilization for inflation numbers instead of coming down and subsiding further like we would want. We still have that. So so far it looks like the economy, as per PCE for that personal spending, that's decent evidence that we have for those numbers that we have for GDP. And then moving in from there, how does inflation go along with that? Well, so far kind of sticking a little bit higher for us. So what does that do for treasuries, especially long-dated treasuries? It can be a little bit of downward pressure for them. They would like to see lower inflation from that. And then if there is lower GDP expected, we could see a little bit more lean back towards hedging towards a safety side of things. What does that mean for the indices that we see? Well, let's put these up here and we'll talk about them. So the S&P is still up in the pre-market, taking a little bit of a dip on the numbers, at least initially, but somewhat sideways when we look at SPY here tracking it. So if we go down to the 1 minute chart, and let me reset the view so we can really see it, you can see that little bit of a drop that we got. That's at 835 that you see going back to 830 is this moment right here. So the market interpretation, at least the initial impacts that we see, just a little bit of softening the pre-market hours, but not substantial. Not horrible news out of the PCE numbers, at least in my opinion, as we look at them. And then if we move over from there over to the Qs. There we go. How did QQQ take this one? Well, big tech earnings came out. Apple crushing things and being up in the pre-market. You can see we also get some softening. We got a bit of indecision for that candle with the long wicks and narrow body that you see there. And then so far, decided at least in the short term on a 1 minute chart. So this is highly volatile as we look at it. This is something that at least the initial interpretation is maybe we need to soften a little bit. We'll see what the rest of the day gives. So if we look at the daily charts for the S&P, we still need to break above 609. Let me get that number for you. 609.83 is the number to beat. I had that up there before these previous two peaks that you saw. Couldn't get over it, sold off. Couldn't get over it, sold off. Let's see if we get a triple top from this, which can be a bearish thing if we get rejected there again, especially if we break down below this trend line that you see here as part of a rising wedge pattern. Then it would be, okay, get rejected there. Do we break down through this pattern? Do we put in lower lows? Do we break down through the 50-period moving average? What about the 20? We don't know that yet. Right now, we're still in very bullish territory. We're up in the pre-market hours. Those are good things. We're up above these trend lines. Also a good thing. We're still within the rising wedge. Prices can keep on rising. We need to sit on top of this line right here, going across about the middle of your screen, a little bit north of middle. 610 or above, we'll just call it, just to keep it simple. We need to sit up there solidly as support in order to have that further upside. So we could have a little bit of movement, about 0.3% up from where it sits in the pre-market hours yet to test that out and then watch for initial rejection. If we do blast through it, especially on strong volume, that would be something that we would want to see. Okay, full candle close up above that 609.83 is what we're looking for further bullishness. A rejection off of that could be a double top for us, maybe even triple top, depending on how close we look at that. I think double top, triple top, depends on what sort of sell-off we get. Then when we zoom out a little bit more, what we would see from that. So let's move over to the Qs. What are we looking for? Well, we still didn't break this previous high that we had back here on January the 24th. We want to see if we can get up above there. You can see that little bit of a gap that we have to fill, up to about 528.24. And we want to break that peak at, well, let me see, I can tell you what that peak was. The high price, 533.79. Getting up above that, then we want to watch for that previous peak that we got at 539.15. We want to sit strongly on top of 539 in order to see that further upside coming out of the Qs. And we tested out. We broke down below the 50 and the 20, I should say. Next day, Tuesday, blasted up above it, tested the 50 and 20, passed for support. Tested yesterday, the 50 and the 20, passed once again for support. Those are very bullish signs for us, and you can see up in the pre-market as a result from that. How did the Russell 2000 think of this? It still needs to get up above its 50-day to get up above, solidly up above $530. I'm sorry, my goodness, $230 per share for IWM, tracking the Russell 2000 stocks. The pre-market hours, not very much rattled by what we saw through the PCE numbers. I would say that it's not something that was so high that it's going to be something that causes the market to sell off, but it also wasn't something so low that causes the market to really blast off in a bullish direction. It just kind of gives permission, if you will, for it to keep on doing what it was already doing. That's my take on it, and that's, I think, what we're seeing. So if we go to Bitcoin, the number to beat for Bitcoin, I'm going to say it every day until it happens, 107,892. We need to get on top of that. This is that real triple top. If we don't get on top of that, if we get up there again, get rejected again, and then sell back down off of that, watch out for that triple top. That's a bearish thing. Sitting on top of it, very bullish. In the near term, can take us up to 116, 168. Longer term, watch out for that $144 per share. Oh my goodness, per share, per BTC. And we also want to watch out for about 120 up to about 127. There's some other resistances that I don't currently have on my chart that you can see there, but wildly bullish if we can get on top of 107,892. Just keep that in mind. Until that point in time, we want to be cautious with Bitcoin's price. XRP, man, look at this sideways trading that you have on XRP since this peak. And look at this, what we have with the moving averages in here, the 5, the 13, the 20, finding support above the 50 EMA and SMA, finding support again with support held by the 20 and the 13, just below the 5, sitting on top of the 5, currently sitting on top of the 5. Very bullish position for XRP with a subdued number that we have on the RSI for the momentum subdued, but still in bullish territory. So we're not overbought. We're not down near 50. We're in very good shape right now to see that next rally come along. We might see that next push very soon for XRP back up at 340. Watch for the rejection for a double top. If we're able to sit up on top of $3.40 per XRP, then that gives us that room where we want to start looking for that 472 as that next huge price target, playing off the bull pennant that we recently broke out of. Now we'll see if we get that push up from there, from that bull pennant. And you can see back here when we retested resistance as support, I said, here we go, this is the moment, and then you saw that rip. We're watching for that same thing, breakthrough resistance, see it test as support, watch for that rip, especially from the news that we get out of the federal government for the United States, the SEC, whatever it might happen to be, word from Trump, talk about XRP, looking for an ETF or ETF approval. We're watching for any sort of positive news catalyst from here because we are sitting in very bullish territory right now, which can really help us amplify upward movement. That double top could be something that has a sell down, which case we want to watch for the 20 and the 50 to be, once again, support for us before, if we fall through those and then find out we retest, the resistance upholds, that's when we start to sell down more. But right now, I just don't expect that to happen. All right, just to close things up here, we'll talk about Nvidia quickly. These 4 candles that you see, this is the 200-day. We came down at the bottom of this thing and tested a 50-week EMA, SMA. I said we could bounce significantly from here. On the daily chart that we're looking at now, we absolutely did bounce on that pretty well. You can see so far support, probably coming back down if we go to the weekly chart to the SMA, to the EMA. So take a look here on this weekly chart. Here's the support that I was talking about off the 50-week. Got a nice strong bounce off of that. Still fairly indecisive, super narrow body at the moment. High top wick, very long bottom wick. We want to watch and see that support upheld. So this 200-day, we want to see that hold. We don't want to see us push down through that and then unable to break back up the 200-day. Then we got to watch for that 50-week. And if we sell it back down below that, Nvidia can sell. If support holds instead, watch this trend line up above for around $133 per share for Nvidia. So right now, we already had a question for the demand for Nvidia products and services. How much will it uphold? Will it still give us the same growth numbers that we were looking at? Is it going to be subdued growth? Are companies rethinking their positions? Right now, you can see that doubtfulness since we had that DeepMind R1 come out as a smaller language model to show a lot of efficiency that was out there. So do the companies still have that high demand for these huge models that take a lot of hardware to train and a lot of capital to train? Honestly, I don't think that Nvidia's story is over. I think that the models are just going to get more complex with those efficiencies in place to really fill out and flesh out what we can do with AI as we push towards AGI and ASI. So for Nvidia, still sitting in bullish territory, need to keep the 200-day as support. That's the thing to watch. We lose that, I think we're going to sell down more. 115 to 118 tends to be a fairly strong support. As I mentioned days ago, when we were back down in this area over at the Discord, and I've mentioned it in YouTube. Since that time, you guys can get access to the Discord by finding a link for the Patreon down below. Click that, sign up, head on over to the Discord, see my technicals over there, and see the updates throughout the market day. Moving into Roblox, rising wedge pattern on this one blew up through the top of this. And what I said about blowing through the top of a rising wedge is that's a bullish thing. And so far, we can see that bullish movement. Watch for that resistance around 74. This might cause me to close out my position as we're up above that. And I was looking for that rejection off the bottom. We just didn't get it so far. And so, well, you win some, you lose some on that one. And that takes me to, well, I got TMF here. I'll talk about TMF needs to break up above 41. If it does, it takes us to 43. Today's inflation report, not necessarily the best direct help that we're going to get from that, as we get numbers that point to potentially still strong GDP, but then also still higher than expected inflation. We would need both of those numbers to come down to be upward pressure on the long-term treasuries. Now, just to wrap things up with Netflix, what's Netflix doing? Well, there's the consolidation pattern that we saw with Netflix, and if we go to the 4-hour chart on this, there we go. You can see the bull pennant that we have drifting up above, missing that volume confirmation. So right now, my long position on this one, the long option play that I have, so far has not printed as big as I wanted to. I was up money, I was down money. We'll see where it goes from here. We want to see that push up to 1030. If it does, I'll take that profit. And if it does fall below this bottom trend line here, that's something that I'm going to have to cut my losses on that one as well. So the time's still out on that one. We'll see how that plays out from here. So guys, let me wrap things up here. Taking a quick sip of my coffee. That was delicious. The PCE numbers, the personal income and outlay numbers, not the worst ones that we've got, not totally inflationary. Inflation looking somewhat stabilized. That's not necessarily a bad thing as far as the market's concerned. We do want to see that subdued inflation come over time. And we'll see as we watch those numbers come out how that plays out for us. So keep an eye on the markets. Watch for those peaks. We need to pass those previous peaks in the S&P and in the QQQ. And then for IWM, need to get up on top of that 50-day. Moving on from there, for Bitcoin, 107,892. For XRP, we're looking for $3.40. We need to sit on top of that to have it as support to push up for that next big pump from 340 up to that 472. I think that we can hit it. It's going to take some positive catalysts along the way to really help us out. So all good there. Nvidia, hold the 200-day, please. I would like to see more bullish movement as a long-term holder. If it does happen to fall down through and it gets cheap enough, I'll load up on some more of those and add more to my position. Roblox, we'll see if it turns around anytime before 74 or at 74. We'll look and see. For right now, the rising wedge pattern, breaking at the top of it, so far blows that technical. For Netflix, for the bullish pennant pattern that we saw, so far that one is confirmed, but without the volume to support it to really see that rampant upward climb. So we'll see what the market gives us today. Maybe today's that day. Until that point in time, guys, thank you for watching. Check out the link for the Patreon down in the description. Head on over to the Discord once you do. And then also down in the description, find a link for Stockmo Academy. Click that, sign up, learn how to do technical analysis, trading yourself using the bread recipe that's part of that. Easy to set up, easy to follow. It can show you when stocks, crypto about to take off to the upside, to the downside. Big, huge momentum moves with that. It's one I personally use myself. Stockmo uses himself. And that course walks you exactly through how to set it up, how to read it, how to interpret it. And you also get access to a learning community that goes along with that can help you with, support you with setting it up, how to read it, looking for those breakout moments. Tons of testimonials coming out with that, talking about the success with the bread recipe trading strategy. And you can get it cheaper by using the code word Doctor, DOCTOR. Thank you very much for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. I'll see you next video.